mental health. As I've probably alluded to in the past, I am a mental health first aider in my place of work. I've been responsible for getting an entire mental health service set up in the place of my employment. And we've recently taken on our second cohort of mental health first aiders. Obviously, I was in the first cohort, as kind of the whole thing started from my ideas. So I thought I would give a bit of I wouldn't say a TED talk, but I would say talk about some useful methods that I talk about people's mental health at work and in the workplace. And this is something that can be expressed as well, or kind of utilised within personal life as well. So we all deal with anxiety, I'm sure, and that can be in social life, personal life, it can be in work life, and there are many things that can affect anxiety in different people. Different people will have different triggers or different different situations that will cause their anxiety to become a bit more intense. Like for me, my personal one is I find it kind of, I'm weirdly not a massively sociable person in the workplace. I find it uncomfortable when I have to socialise, when I don't really, not want to say don't really want to, but it's like feeling comfortable in doing so. If work is really tricky and I'm doing things that I don't fully understand or I haven't done before, it can affect me. Going to new places, different teams, working on different projects, all these sorts of things can, as I go off into turn one, take the run-off road here. And recently I've been working on an infrastructure project for water, and it's a pipeline basically from Manchester to the Lake District in Cumbria, and it's one of the largest water infrastructure projects in Europe. And I've been tasked with kind of I would say getting the initial project management plans in place and things like that, things above my pay grade, and I was just like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. And this was causing me to have really high levels of anxiety, really high levels of stress, which is where then the stress bucket comes in. So the best way to think of a stress bucket is that it is a literal bucket. Ooh, okay, that was weird. And if you think that this bucket has a tap running into it and a tap at the bottom, so your stress bucket ultimately is the amount of stress and anxiety that you can handle. And going into this bucket constantly from this tap is things that add to your stress bucket. So for me, it's working on new projects, it's being in unfamiliar situations, unfamiliar places, unfamiliar people, social anxiety, it's acceptance, it's confidence, it's anything that affects your mood, your esteem, anxiety, anything like that. And then in order, this is rocking around really quite aggressively, and if you think that then at the bottom of this bucket is a tap, and this tap is what I call the self-care tap, and effectively what you want to do is to open this self-care tap in order to let out some of these stresses and anxieties. So then you don't start to overflow. When you overflow, that's when you start to kind of get things like, I don't know, panic attacks or anxiety attacks, or you start to get more irritable. You start to become less functional. And then if you continue just to let that overflow, that's when depression and serious, health conditions can arise from that. So what I employ or implore everyone to do is a self-care bingo. And the self-care bingo is very similar to the bingo cards that you've got here on Twitch, where you put things that you enjoy doing that make you happy, that make you feel relaxed. So for me, there's listening to music, listening to podcasts, going out with Laura, going to the cinema, going out for the weekend and going out for a meal, or it can even just be reading a book or having your favourite food or anything like that helps you just to unwind, to de-stress, to relax. And then what this does is this allows for your stresses and anxieties to empty from your stress container, and then you want to have that nice equilibrium of things coming out and of things going in, because ultimately we can't get rid of stresses and anxieties. They're always going to be there, unfortunately, and we can never fully get rid of them. But also in your stress bingo, or your self-care bingo, you also want to have things that might just take you out of your comfort zone a little bit, because trying new things is good for you. It's, we can't just stay doing the same things over and over again because it becomes normalized. So you throw some new tasks, things, it could be, I don't know, gardening, doing gardening, or if you've not read before, find a book to read, or that Netflix series that you've been meaning to watch for 3 months. Put that in there, and you make sure that you find time to do it. And your aim is, after a week or two, you want to make sure that you've got a row crossed off. Okay, when you've done that row, you go to a column and you go to another row, and eventually you want to tick off that entire self-care bingo card. And then when you've done that, you make a new one, and then that gives you something else to then work towards, and you just keep doing that. So for me, like I said, it's this playing guitar, it's listening to music, podcasts, audiobooks, playing racing games, playing Battlefield with my friends, going out with my friends, going out for a drink with Laura, going to my nail salon and getting my nails done. It's all these things that really help and really make a big difference. And some people don't have the best of financial situations, so make sure that things are within your budget. You don't want to put yourself out by putting on there, oh, I'm going to book a holiday to Florida, when you don't have the money to do so. You also have to kind of live within your means, but also find the time to treat yourself at the same time. Because ultimately, I would say life isn't constantly a roller coaster going up or going down. It's up, it's down, it's up, it's down, it stays flat, it stays stagnant, it goes up, it goes down. Our life is never constant, and you can't always be happy, but ultimately as well, you shouldn't always be sad. You should be able to look after yourself, look after others, and be there for the people that you also rely on it, because it's a two-way street. You don't want to be the person that's constantly relying on other people, but you also don't want to be the person that's always being relied on, and then people taking advantage of you. It's a healthy medium. So I find that's a good way to managing stress, anxiety, depression, everything under that umbrella. This has been Josh's TED Talk. Like, for example, if I recently did a speech, actually this week, I did a talk at we have a works conference at Christmas time, as do most private companies. And I wanted to talk about, we have a lot of neurodivergent people in our company. Some are autistic, some have ADHD, some have Asperger's, some have OCD. There is a vast array of different neurodivergent, characteristics in our company. So I recently did a talk and I said, kind of a lot of us aren't built or aren't designed to socialise in loud events like a works party or a works conference or anything like that, because everybody goes out at Christmas and has a works party, and some of us aren't outgoing for stuff like that. So I said, some people may want to arrive early, some people will want to arrive late, some people will want to walk in with 3 of their friends, some people might want to walk in alone. So I did like a guide for people both that don't necessarily have a clear understanding of people with neurodivergent issues or neurodivergent characteristics, but ultimately as well for the neurodivergents who, may not know, how do I deal with this scenario? How do I deal with this scenario? So I said about, practice standing in a mirror and practicing your how are yous, thinking of conversation topics. So I said, obviously, the safe bet is always the weather. The British people love to talk about their weather. I said, talking about Christmas jumpers, stupid little things like that invoke a conversation, but also then what to do at the end of the conversation. And I was saying, like, when it comes to the end of the night, some people will want to, stay at work parties and get the last train home. Some people might want to turn up for an hour, show their face, say hello and go home. So I said, you have 3 options. I said, you can either do the safe option, which is, I've got something on tomorrow, for example, if you're out on a Friday, I've got to be up for, I don't know, seeing the family on Saturday. And I also pulled out the classic, I told my cat I would be home for 9 p.m, which I think is a funny one. And I said, for those that are expert introverts and have mastered the Irish goodbye, and that is only to be done if you know how to disappear without a trace. But I said, approach this one with caution, because people will just wonder where you went. But you need to slip out like nobody ever knew you was there. On top of that, I also suggested that there's areas that are quiet, though with comfortable seating, if people don't want to be in loud particular areas. I know I don't like it, I can't stand it. And look at that, we are into the 4-hour 58 mark. So now I've started to get that bit of a rhythm going at 56, 36, 35, 46 with the spin, 33. And kind of see where my pace is at. Going back to racing. As we reach sunset hour at Le Mans. Ooh, that was a lot of understeer. What are we doing on fuel? Okay. Weather is looking good. Looks like we're coming back up onto some more LMGT3 drivers. Hello, Mr. Lexus. Getting very early on the brakes there. Yeah, radar looks fine. I'm aiming for the next pit stop just to take on fuel only. What are we thinking of the race so far? I must admit, the night session is going to be fun. That's when it gets really tough. So glad I haven't got the heating on because I would be dying right now. Starting to bring that gap down slowly but surely. I plan on making most of my time back through pit stops. Oh, you swine. Ah, man. I've lost so much time there. Right, time to hydrate. time to hydrate. I'm going to save a bit of caffeine. The laptop is charged. Let's unplug it for